Hi everyone, I hope your semester is off to a good start. This week you're going to be reading chapters 1 and 2 from the book Women in the New Testament by Bonnie Thurston. Before I talk a little bit about the reading, I just want to go over a couple of things. First of all, on my last video, I don't think I mentioned this, but there are PowerPoints for most weeks, and the point of those is for you to take notes, alongside the PowerPoint. It's definitely not everything that you might be tested over, but it does kind of highlight the things that are important in the reading. This week you'll participate in your first discussion, and so you need to make an initial post by Wednesday and comment on someone else's post by Friday, both at 11:59 a.m. as the deadline. And so when you're making your original post, make sure that it is your words, that you're not just copying and pasting from somewhere else. Also, if you do want to quote someone, that you use a citation for that. And make sure you fully answer the question. A good post is probably 2 to 3 good paragraphs. And I do read them pretty closely for grammar and spelling, so make sure that you do a good job with editing and proofreading. When you comment on someone else's post, make sure that you're talking about something specific and not just saying good post or something like that. This week, as I said, you will be reading chapters 1 and 2. Chapter 1 is primarily an introduction to the book. She does kind of make the reference of talking about women in the church being like walking through a minefield, and so you will kind of react to that this week. She points out, which is true, that the Bible is written by men, for men, about men, and that this does really have a very narrow kind of perspective. But that doesn't mean women aren't included and that they aren't mentioned. And of course, looking at how they have been treated and how their stories are told is very important, and will help us kind of reclaim some of our power and some of our dignity in the church. So she kind of points out that there are 4 issues basically at play here when we're interpreting the Bible from a feminine perspective. And that is language, power, economics, and gender role. And those things all impact the Bible and impact how people have interpreted the Bible. Language, of course, has been predominantly male-centered, and there have been some moves to try to include inclusive language when using the Bible. That has had varying degrees of success and moments where it was very kind of appreciated and moments where it's been very much rejected. Also, she points out that power is a big thing and that men have historically had the power, and that there's always kind of this competition for power versus trying to strive for mutuality and solidarity, and that could impact women. Economics also has a lot to do with this because men primarily have had the money, and therefore that gives them more power. And then finally, of course, gender roles have really changed in the last 50 years, but there have been some pretty set roles for women and men that kind of are based on some of the passages in the Bible, and have, people's interpretation of those passages have contributed to that kind of being prolonged a lot longer than it should have been. So the Bible has been used to oppress women, but it can also be kind of reclaimed and reinterpreted and looked at again from a feminine perspective, and trying to find stories and passages that would really give power back to women, and trying to make this a more mutual thing more than a competitive thing. Chapter 2 in the book is more historical. It will give you kind of a good foundation in the history leading up to the New Testament and kind of the backdrop to the New Testament. And I think you'll find that it's very surprising that what you read about how the world was before there was Judaism is pretty important. Also, you're going to read about women in Judaism, and it makes the point that there are really multiple Judaisms and not just one. And I think the same could be said of most churches, just like in the Catholic Church. There's a lot of different ways that Catholic people read the Bible, and a lot of different things that Catholic people believe in. So it will go into the different types of Judaisms and the women and within those and how they're treated. You'll also read a lot about some of the cultural practices in Rome and Greece and the Roman and Greek cultures and how that influenced early Judaism. And there's this term that they use in there, Hellenistic Jew or Hellenism. And these are mostly like Jews who want to be like the Greeks. The Greek culture was very much admired, especially by the Romans. So you find in a lot of Roman culture a lot of kind of stealing from the Greeks and kind of repeating a lot of Greek culture. And then Jewish people who really admired that and tried to kind of live a Greek lifestyle, even though they are Jewish. So as I said, I'm just going to always say a few things about the reading, but the reading itself will speak for itself, so you should read and take notes along the PowerPoint and make sure you participate in the discussion. Have a great week.